Let's talk about that moment. You know the one. You've cried the tears. You've questioned your worth. You've sat in silence, staring at the screen, hoping their name would pop up. Waiting. Hoping. Feeling like maybe, just maybe, you did something wrong. But let me tell you something. When you finally decide to stop waiting, when you finally decide to stand up and say, I deserve more, something magical happens. You start coming back to yourself. And that's exactly when they come back. Isn't it funny? The moment you move on, not pretend, not post cute pictures, not try to make them jealous, but truly, in your heart, decide to let go, suddenly their radar lights up. Suddenly, that avoidant, the one who couldn't give you their time, their heart, or their effort, now wants back in. Why? Because energy doesn't lie. They feel the shift. They feel your detachment. And to someone who's used to control, used to knowing they can come and go as they please, that shift terrifies them. You see, avoidants don't fear losing you. They fear losing control over how you feel about them. And when you move on, really move on, you take back that power. But listen carefully. Just because they come back doesn't mean you let them back in. Because this isn't about them anymore. This is about you. This is about the version of you who knows what she brings to the table. The version who knows she deserves someone who chooses her the first time. Someone who shows up, not when it's convenient, but when it matters. You moving on? That's not rejection. That's not failure. That's you reclaiming your life. Let them come back. Let them realize what they lost. But don't you dare forget who you had to become to let go. That strength, that clarity, that peace, that's yours. You fought hard for it. You cried for it. So smile when they show up. Nod if you need to, but you keep walking. Because this isn't about who comes back. It's about who you've become while they were gone. And my God, look at you now. Let's be honest. Letting go sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It's not about deleting their number or unfollowing them on social media. It's not even about saying, I'm over it, out loud to your friends. True letting go happens silently, deeply, and within. It's the moment you stop checking your phone. It's when you stop rehearsing conversations in your head. It's when you stop holding your breath for closure you'll probably never get. Healing doesn't begin with someone else's apology. It begins with your decision to stop bleeding from wounds they won't acknowledge. It starts when you stop placing your value in their hands. You stop trying to decode their mixed signals or rationalize their silence. You realize their inability to love you properly has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their capacity. Letting go is choosing you, your peace, your future, your emotional freedom, over the fantasy of what could have been. And when that moment comes, when you stop clinging and start accepting, you begin to heal. You begin to breathe again. You begin to live again. Because that space they left, that ache you felt, it becomes room for something greater, for your joy, for your clarity, for someone who sees you. That's when real healing begins, not in holding on, but in the brave, quiet decision to let go and walk forward. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to send a dramatic text or announce to the world that you're done. The moment you decide, deep down, that you're no longer emotionally available to someone who couldn't show up for you, everything changes. Why? Because energy speaks louder than anything. When you were anxious, waiting, chasing, second-guessing yourself, they felt it. And maybe they didn't say it, but they were comfortable. They knew you'd always be there. But when that energy shifts, when your focus turns inward, when you start loving yourself the way you once begged them to, you become different. You become grounded, unshakable, detached. And that detachment? It's not cold, it's not cruel, it's powerful. Because it's not born out of bitterness, it's born out of clarity. It's you saying, I see things clearly now. I know who I am. I know what I deserve. And that scares them, because avoidants are drawn to your emotional presence. They thrive on the attention, the pull, the pursuit. When that's gone, when you stop feeding that dynamic, they feel the void. They don't always understand what's changed, but they feel it. And suddenly, they're curious again, intrigued, maybe even desperate to reconnect. But here's the truth. That shift? It's not about pulling them back. It's about pulling yourself forward. You stopped orbiting around someone who couldn't meet you halfway. And that change in energy, it's not just powerful, it's transformational. See, when you were emotionally attached, waiting, hoping, hurting, they felt in control. Even if they weren't physically present, even if they weren't texting back or showing up, they knew they still lived rent-free in your mind. And that gave them power. It fed their ego. It reassured them they didn't need to do more to keep you close. But when you finally stop reaching out, when you stop reacting to their breadcrumbs, when you no longer need their approval or attention to feel whole, that's when the panic sets in for them. It's not that they suddenly realized you're the one. It's not always love that brings them back. It's the fear that they no longer have access to the emotional space you reserved for them. Avoidants want the benefits of your emotional investment, your care, your presence, your loyalty, without the responsibility of reciprocating it. So when you reclaim that emotional energy, when you take your power back, they come knocking. Not because they've changed, but because the dynamic they relied on no longer exists. It's not about you being irresistible now. You were always enough. It's about you finally realizing they weren't. And once you see that clearly, you understand. Their return isn't a compliment. It's a test. And you're not here to be tested. You're here to be chosen. There's something profoundly empowering about the moment you stop waiting for someone who never truly showed up for you. It's not about winning or proving a point or pretending you're fine. It's about reclaiming something that was always yours, your power. Because the truth is, every time you waited for a text, replayed conversations, tried to be more patient, more understanding, more lovable, you were slowly handing over pieces of your self-worth. You were hoping that if you just did a little more or loved a little harder, they'd finally give you what you needed. But they didn't. And eventually, you reached your breaking point, not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. You realized that continuing to hope was costing you your peace, your joy, and your identity. And that's when you made a different kind of choice. Not a loud, dramatic one. A quiet, powerful one. You decided to move on. And in doing so, you took your power back. You stopped making excuses for someone who kept hurting you. You stopped measuring your worth by their ability to love you. You stopped shrinking to fit into a space that was never meant for your full self. You stopped hoping they'd change and started changing yourself. That's not weakness. That's strength. And here's what's even more beautiful. You didn't move on because you stopped caring. You moved on because you started caring more about yourself. You began to protect your heart instead of constantly offering it to someone who didn't know how to hold it. You started showing up for yourself in the ways you once wished they would. That's what reclaiming your power looks like. It's not about becoming hard or distant. It's about becoming whole. And once you feel that shift, once you start living from a place of worth instead of waiting for someone to validate it, you become unstoppable. It's one of life's most frustrating patterns. You spend weeks, maybe months, in a fog of confusion, heartbreak, and self-doubt, wondering why they pulled away. You questioned everything. Was it something you said? Did you come on too strong? Were you too emotional? You gave them space. You gave them time. And they gave you silence. So eventually, you gave yourself the one thing they never could: closure. You started rebuilding your life, slowly, painfully, but with purpose. You focused on your own healing. You stopped checking your phone. You deleted the playlist that reminded you of them. You began sleeping better, breathing easier, smiling more. Your energy shifted, not because you were pretending, but because you were finally free. And then they come back, out of nowhere. A message, a like, a, "Hey, how have you been?" It almost feels like the universe is playing a cruel joke. Where were they when you needed answers? Where was this effort when you were begging for connection? But here's what's really happening. It's not the universe testing you. It's your detachment changing the dynamic. When you were emotionally available, always hoping, always trying, they felt in control. But now, you've stopped giving them access to your emotions. You've stopped showing up in the ways they got used to. And that absence creates discomfort. That silence speaks louder than any message you could have sent. They return not because they've suddenly become ready for a relationship, but because your distance makes them feel something they weren't prepared for. The loss of your energy. The comfort they used to take for granted is gone. And the version of you they knew, the one who waited, hoped, chased, is no longer there. But just because they come back doesn't mean it's a second chance at love. More often, it's a reaction to the void your healing created. It's an echo of control, not commitment. So if they return, ask yourself, are they showing up differently, or are they just responding to the fact that I finally did? Your growth changed the rules. You're no longer playing the same game. And that's why they notice you now, because you finally stopped needing them to. When they come back, it can shake you. Suddenly, all the memories flood in, the good times, the laughter, the almosts. For a moment, it's tempting to believe this is the moment you waited for, that maybe now they finally see your worth, that maybe this time will be different. And that's exactly what makes this part so hard, because even though they disappeared when you needed them most, even though you cried and begged the universe for closure, a part of you still wants to believe in them. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. You don't owe them another chance. Not for the time you spent. Not because they finally decided to show up. Not because you still care. You don't owe them your energy just because they regret losing it. You're not obligated to reopen a door they chose to close, especially after you've done the work to heal behind it. A person's return isn't proof that they've changed. It's only proof that they noticed you have. And sometimes, people come back not because they're ready to love you right, but because they can sense they've lost their hold on you. That's not love. That's possession disguised as interest. And even if they come with apologies, even if they seem sincere, you have every right to protect your peace. Growth means recognizing that not everyone deserves a second chance, especially those who didn't value the first one. You owe it to yourself to be discerning, to look at their actions, not their words, to ask, are they returning to contribute to your life or to take up space in it? You are not a revolving door. You are not a lesson someone needs to relearn. You are a boundary. You are a healed heart. You are someone who deserves love that's consistent, not convenient. So if they come back, let them. But don't forget, you don't owe them anything, not your time, not your forgiveness, and certainly not your heart. This is where everything changes, not just your healing, but your standards. Because once you've walked through the fire of heartbreak, self-doubt, and loneliness, once you've rebuilt your identity without someone who couldn't meet you halfway, you start to understand something essential. Your worth isn't up for negotiation. For too long, you tied your value to how they treated you. If they pulled away, you felt unlovable. If they ignored you, you questioned your importance. You bent, stretched, and shrank yourself just to fit into their limited capacity to connect. And every time they gave you breadcrumbs, you convinced yourself it was a feast. But now you know better. Now you understand that real love doesn't leave you guessing. It doesn't make you chase. It doesn't wait until you finally let go to suddenly realize your value. The right person won't need to lose you to wake up. They'll recognize your worth from the beginning and treat it like gold. So when they come back, when they say all the things you once longed to hear, you have to remember who you are now. You are someone who knows the cost of ignoring your worth. You are someone who paid that price with sleepless nights, unanswered messages, and quiet pain. And you don't go through all of that just to lower your standards again when someone shows up late. Sticking to your worth means you don't settle for potential. You don't get swayed by sudden attention. You don't let nostalgia convince you to re-enter a cycle that you already broke free from. It means you love yourself enough to say, thank you for coming back, but I'm not where you left me. Knowing your worth is powerful, but living like you know your worth, that's transformation. So stick to it, because the version of you that knows what she deserves will never beg for what she doesn't. One of the hardest things to grasp when dealing with avoidance, or anyone who hurts us, is remembering that this journey is not about changing them, fixing them, or waiting for them to finally see your value. It's about you. It's about the transformation happening inside you while they're still figuring out their own issues. When you were caught in the cycle of hoping and hurting, your focus was on them, their actions, their moods, their absence. You replayed moments, wondering what you could have done differently. But here's the truth. No amount of your effort could make them ready or willing to show up fully. Your healing journey shifts the narrative. Instead of bending your world around their unpredictability, you start centering yourself. You start asking, who am I becoming through this? What lessons am I learning? How am I growing? This process is raw, it's painful, but it's also deeply freeing. Because when you stop chasing the idea of us and start investing in you, you reclaim your identity. You find strength in your scars. You build resilience from your setbacks. You cultivate self-love from the parts you once doubted. This is not about them missing out. This is about you showing up for yourself, fully, unapologetically, and fiercely. And when you embrace that truth, the relationship with yourself becomes your most powerful connection. It becomes your safe place. It becomes the foundation from which you can build any future relationship, whether that's with them, someone new, or simply with your own beautiful life. So, stop looking for validation in their return. Instead, look inward. Celebrate the person you're becoming because this journey, it's about your rise, not their return. After everything you've been through, the waiting, the heartbreak, the disappointment, you emerge stronger. And that strength isn't just some fleeting feeling, it becomes your new baseline. It's the standard by which you measure not only others, but yourself. Before, you may have accepted less because you thought that was all you deserved. You tolerated silence, inconsistency, and distance because you feared being alone or believed love had to be hard. But now, your strength teaches you that love is supposed to feel safe, respectful, and consistent. This strength means you no longer settle for crumbs or excuses. You recognize red flags early and have the courage to walk away instead of stay hoping for change. You trust your instincts because they're sharper now. You value your time and energy because you've learned how precious they are. More than that, your strength means you set boundaries and you enforce them. You don't just say no to what doesn't serve you. You say yes to what honors your worth. You don't compromise your values or your peace to keep someone who can't meet you where you are. And here's the most important part. This strength isn't about being cold or closed off. It's about being fiercely loving to yourself. It's about choosing you every single day, even when it's hard. So when they come back, you don't react out of desperation or fear. You respond from a place of power. Because your strength isn't temporary, it's who you've become. And that new standard, it's not negotiable. So when they come back after you finally move on, don't rush to welcome them in like nothing changed. Instead, recognize the incredible journey you've been on, the tears you shed, the strength you built, the power you reclaimed. Understand that their return is less about you and more about the space you created when you stopped waiting. This is your moment, the moment where you choose yourself over anyone who couldn't see your worth before, the moment where you live by your new standard, where your peace matters more than their presence. You didn't just move on, you leveled up. You became the person who won't settle for less than she deserves. And that's the real reason they come back. Not because you're easier to have now, but because you're finally unreachable to the version of them that never showed up. So smile, hold your head high, and keep walking forward. Because the only direction worth moving in is toward the life and love that honors everything you fought for. You're not just moving on, you're moving up, and that's unstoppable.